Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with Tamika Newhouse. I'm Trisha, and for the past 4.5 years, I've moved around Amazon's books teams, learning the business so I can share it with authors. But we're not here to learn about me, we're here to talk to Tamika. Tamika Newhouse is a woman who wears many hats. She's an author, publisher, speaker, producer, and CEO, to be exact. And she's had an interesting journey going from a teen mom to the author of 16 novels and the winner of 8 African American Literary Awards. She also started Delphine Publications, which has published nearly 200 titles, launching the careers of numerous fellow writers. And in addition to writing and publishing, she now tours the country speaking about overcoming her teen pregnancy to fulfill her dreams, as well as teaching aspiring writers the publishing ropes. She's even dipped her toes in filmmaking as an associate producer and screenwriter to the 8 Ball and MJG biopic Coming Out Hard. With the ultimate goal of becoming a literary rock star still in her sights, she's currently working on her 17th mainstream romance titled Sugar Hill. Welcome, Tamika.
Good
How are you doing
morning.
today?
Anxious and
Good
excited.
morning.
I got my coffees, so I'm all in good spirits.
Good, good. Yes, the coffee's absolutely necessary. We do these a little bit early, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I was like, you know what? Definitely have a they don't mind, right? They don't mind. I have a coffee
No,
to the side. Okay.
you can't
All right.
expect to talk for an hour this early in the morning without some coffee. Come on.
Right, without some type of energy boost, but I am ready to go. I don't know if people were up late last night. They do these musical battles online ever since
Uh-huh.
COVID. So um, artists would do like these battles online, and I was up late last night acting like it was 1995, partying with everybody. So I am a little bit pooped, but I got my coffee, guys, and I am ready to
Good.
go.
Well, yeah, and you should have a little downtime because last week was the Black Writers Weekend, correct?
Yes, last week was Black Writers Weekend. It went virtual this year because of COVID and everything that's going on.
Mhm.
And we wanted to basically keep our attendees, safe, and social distancing is basically the way to go. But I felt like, virtual experience, we can connect with so much more readers and creators this go around. So it went virtual. It was really, really excellent. It was pretty hectic, but not as hectic as an actual festival itself. So that I'm grateful for.
Good, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that it was so successful. It's
Yes,
always a little stressful.
it was fun. I think I keep getting emails now. People are still coming in, and of course they're watching the replays. They're still, sucking in all the information. But I mean, all the
Uh-huh.
thank yous I'm getting, this is what I do it for. So I'm very appreciative for people who attend and they really take that information and they apply it because it's so much resources being
Mhm.
shared through Black Writers Weekend every year. And it's really not just to entertain, it's really to merge writers with opportunity. So I'm grateful for those who are kind of grabbing those relationships and, running with it.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Well, let's kind of move back a little bit and start with a little background. When did
Okay.
you decide that being an author is definitely your calling? This is the direction you're going.
Well, see, it's kind of like when people were born to sing. I was born
Uh-huh.
to write. I'm a natural storyteller. And I was a lonely child, so I've always been writing books. I wrote my first book at 12. And that's when I
Mhm.
told my mother that I was going to move to Atlanta and I was going to become this full-time authoress and I was going to write books and that's what I was going to do. That was always my
Uh-huh.
dream, was to be this famous full-time writer. And Tara McMillan was my inspiration because I discovered her films that I then
Mhm.
discovered were books first, and that shocked me in the early 2000s, late 90s. That was
Uh-huh.
very, very rare for us to be able to see Black women not only get their books into print on the shelves everywhere, but she got a movie too. Three? Wait a minute, I want to be like her. So I told Mom I'm going to Atlanta. But my journey got derailed a little bit, and life happened, and that's when I
Mhm.
discovered self publishing. which is pretty unique that I'm having this conversation with KDP because it's kind of like full circle here.
There you go.
Yep. So it's funny. I discovered self-publishing, and I guess you can say from there the rest is history. I kind of did the research and did the steps, and
Hmm.
yeah, and I published my very first book, The Ultimate No-No, in 2008
Well,
through Kindle.
congratulations
Actually,
on
I
that.
utilized not Kindle but Amazon. I utilized Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, and then eventually, maybe like 2 years later, I began to utilize KDP Kindle, the ebook version.
Hmm. Oh,
Yep.
good, good. So you publish in both ebook and paperback.
Yes, absolutely. I have always been just a little bit more backstory. But first, my before my first book came out, I was so anxious for people to learn about it that I was actually on a plane to my first book event before the book actually released. Just like the author said in the commercial leading up to our conversation, you have complete control over your
Hmm.
journey. And you don't have to wait for anyone to say, wait a minute, you're good enough for me to publish. No, I told myself that, and I did it myself. I put myself on a plane, I booked my own events. And, unfortunately, I only sold 2 books at my first event, but I was excited about those 2 books. And I
Right.
was on a plane every month after that. And I ended up selling so many books, I caught the attention of a major publisher, Kensington, only 9 months after being out. And that's when I ended up getting a book deal with Kensington as well, just from the hard work. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for
Oh,
you.
yes.
Now, you're a hybrid author, right? So you're publishing in both traditional and self-publishing right now.
Correct. Yep.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm a hybrid is because there is never, for me, it's always more opportunities out there. It's always someone who
Hmm.
has not heard about you. It's always somebody new that can read your book. And when you're independent, granted, you can control your whole journey, but you're also just one person. I played an octopus for a long time, and the octopus has like, what they got, like 8 arms?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like 8 arms. That was me. So, having a traditional publisher, especially one with distribution such as that, which was
Mhm.
phenomenal worldwide, it really helped push me forward. So doing both helped me keep that control, but it also allowed me to be exposed in other ways that I myself cannot do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about your genre. What genre do you primarily write in?
It's mainly romance because I love love. I
Okay.
think that love is beautiful. So I write about love for the most part, but it always is laced with drama, some type of
Uh-huh.
extreme, life altering situation is going on, and my characters have to redeem themselves. So
Hmm.
it's always a story of redemption and love in my stories because I just love love. I actually have this on my arm. It says, "Always choose love."
Aw,
I think love is, it's the greatest form of affection. Everybody
right.
wants it.
Aw, that's a great outlook. Definitely
Yeah.
helps. And it's definitely in demand, right?
It really is. I mean, because again, everyone wants love in every form, and then there's so many different ways that love is being expressed now, which I think is pretty great. Because we've come a really long ways where people couldn't openly love those who they wanted to because they'd be judged or talked about or mistreated or whatever. And now we don't really have as much. Of course, you still have that hate there. But it's so many different genres that's being birthed around just the subject love. So I'm enjoying the seeing that as well. Yeah.
Good. Good. Now, you not only publish, but you also help others publish. What are
Yeah.
some of the teachings that you share with other people when they're just getting started?
Oh wow. I have been more of a mentor to writers since 2009.
Hmm.
Hundreds of writers. I've probably lost count, and I probably helped develop a little under 100 independent publishing houses. And what I tell them is first, the writing is fun, but most of
Hmm.
this is business. Once you kind of get your book out and you put it on the platforms, the rest of it is strategy, marketing, business, and understanding your voice mainly.
Hmm.
So I always ask them, well, who are you and why do we care? I get them to kind of dive in a little bit deeper because your story may be great. There are thousands upon thousands of stories that are being published because now we have that freedom. But what's going to
Hmm.
help you stand out? And I often tell writers that I work with that writing is an art form, meaning you're an artist.
Mhm.
meaning look at yourself just like any other artist, like a singer or an actor, even a dancer. They practice and they polish their creativity. Writers should be doing the same because we are artists. And when you're an artist, you also have an identity. There's a way that you flow, there's a way that you speak, there's a way that you project. There's certain types of projects that you attach yourselves to because you are you, like how you
Mhm.
speak, your favorite color, your hobbies, like all these things make up who you are, and people are going to be connected to you for the most part. So understanding a little bit of who you are, especially if you're going into the independent publishing route, and then finding those outlets and your tribe, finding other artists like you, going to events and things that kind of match your genre and your creative space, and finding writing communities. You have to be, kind of a little bit involved, in these communities. You don't technically go out just because of COVID. It's a lot of things
Mhm.
online, but understanding who you are it's who I always try to get writers to understand, and then polishing your writing, understanding,
Mhm.
your art form, understanding your voice, and coming connected with that. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
So understanding who you are is the first step in building that brand, right? So what are some of the other things, and how do you encourage somebody to find the information they need to start building that brand?
Well, you can do a cheat sheet. Like, you don't even technically have to start from scratch. We all have
Mhm.
somebody we admire. We all have somebody who we think that, oh man, I wish, my career was a little bit like that. Basically, brand crush. I call them brand crushes. So you can go and see, what your crush is doing and see how it worked for them, and kind of, find yourself in the middle of that. You can also stroll the aisles of the bookstores, open those suckers up. Look at the copyright pages. Go to their bios. Look at their acknowledgments. They're talking about the people that's in their circle. Like, it's
Mhm.
some cheat sheets, some little sneaky ways to do it. Um, but other than that, if you do not go in and seek out, people that's already doing it, then I would then focus on you as a whole. Kind of write out, who am I? What do I like to do? Identify yourself in one line. And because this will be like your selling pitch, and then kind of, go from there. It's all trial and error for the end of the day. And then once you kind of have a good idea, even if it just starts with just posting quotes or blurs from your book, be consistent with it. Consistency, being disciplined with your communication, it's all going to make a difference. Because if you post once and then post again a couple weeks later, or maybe the next month, who are you talking to? Who are you trying to reach? Because that's not going to be engaging enough. You got to be really, really aggressive, especially when you're first
Mhm.
starting this race. And I would also like to say that once you kind of reach that level that you're trying to get to, I've spoken to so many different creatives, and it's just as hard to stay here than it was to get there. Like, getting there seems to be easy, but staying there, because you have so many people that's coming up too. So staying right
Mhm.
here is where it's going to really test you. So being consistent with your content, being consistent with your communication, and your engagement is really, really going to help you maintain this.
Mhm. So how did you originally find your audience? You talked about going to different events. Is that how you
Oh,
found your audience?
yes and no. I started off virtually, which is interesting that everything now is virtually. But I also did know that there was a lot of people online, and it was easier for me to attack a room versus being online. Also, the most important people that you need to build relationships with aren't technically sitting online. They're not sitting behind the computer in the chat rooms. They're actually,
Mhm.
at the events. So I understood the logical approach to, the readerships, and also to relationships within the industry that I need to kind of merge and, and build. So for me, I always was outside at an event. I'm always hitting the pavement.
Mhm.
I was doing events at least 2 or 3 a month, in my best years, in my golden years. Um, but yeah, it was for me, it was like a no-brainer. Like, I'm going to do events as well. Um, I grew up kind of watching, a half a dozen Black writers do their book signings and readings and things like that. And I want to do that too. I just never saw myself just sitting behind, the computer. I felt like the ultimate experience would be, to embrace readers. And I've done hundreds of trade shows since 2008. And I do festivals, conferences, in libraries. I would curate my own events because when you're new, people don't technically want you to be on their platform, or you have to like get a vending booth and you off in the cut in the corner, can't nobody really see you. So I'm like, that don't work. So I would create my own events and I would just tell people to come to my party. And that's basically how I kind of also begin to kind of build my own platform, my own following too.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, when did you decide that you could do this full time? What was that trigger point?
23, when I was a teacher, and I was these children was getting on my nerves, but I loved, molding young minds. It was kind of like the same when
Mhm.
I do with writers, like just teaching them, encouraging them, and get them all, just excited about themselves. And I always even tell my own children that, there's only one you, so treat yourself the best.
Mhm.
And when I was 23, I want to say Delphine Publications, which was my independent publishing house, it began to grow six figures. And it ended up grossing six figures from the ebook division alone. Um, and so when that happened, I was like, man, forget these kids. And I quit my job. I dropped out of school. I am a college dropout. I had one semester to go, but I was
Oh,
going to school for education. And,
uh-huh.
I didn't see myself really teaching. That was the safe route. I think it's logically we have our safe route and then we have our dreams that we want to do. And teaching was my safe route. That was just, the norm. Go to school. I was married at the time. I had two children, two young ones. That was my safety zone. When
Uh-huh.
my dreams started exploding and, shattering my safety zone, I'm like, forget that. And so I just kind of quit and went on from there. So, and how it got to six figures, people are like, well, how did you get to six figures? It's about 3 years now for Delphine Publications, and I was consistently putting out books every month. And then I
Mhm.
started signing new authors, and those authors, I had them putting out books almost every month. But I also had requirements for them. They had to, engage online. They had to do
Mhm.
these certain events. They had to seek out book reviewers. I made sure they actively, did things to kind of boost their own books and their own journey. So that's basically how I kind of got there.
Good. Now tell me a little bit about your publishing company. Tell me about Delphine Publications.
Well, Delphine Publications was started because when I discovered the art of publishing, and I was like, wait a minute, I can make my own dreams come true.
Mhm.
I had to think of an imprint, a name that my book will come out under. And so I was like, well, I'm going to name it after my mother because my mother had just passed
Oh.
maybe a couple years prior. And I wrote The Ultimate No No 3 weeks after she passed because, life was
Mm.
sucky at that moment. I was going through my own dark spaces. And The Ultimate No No was my escape. And I wanted my mother's name to be spoken daily.
Mhm.
And then she embodied everything. Like she was like this vibrant person, and she also had her introverted ways. She was this worldly individual, but she was also, very strong Christian and spiritual being. So I felt that Delphine just embodied everything. I can create all kind of genres into this imprint. And I launched it in 2008 with The Ultimate No No. I eventually signed on two authors within that first 12 months. Um, and then from there, I took my authors on the run and began to brand them together. I created all kind of reader groups and things online. I reached out to for additional distribution, like with Ingram, and I made sure all the books then were available on ebooks. And I kind of just,
Mhm.
I had fun with it as well. And I did not technically know business, but I had a lot of fun with putting out all of these different stories and all these different vibrant colors. And Delphine Publications at one time at its highest around 2011 or 12 had 30 plus writers all at once. And it was just
Oh, wow.
me. Yeah, it was just me and a couple contractors, like editors and designers and things like that. But
Uh-huh.
when it came to, you know, the company itself, it was just little old me. And I'm not even quite 25 yet. And Delphine Publications went on to gain a partnership deal with like Black Expressions. We had distribution deals with independent bookstores, around the country. And
Mhm.
as ebook began to kind of rise and more writers were able to kind of take control of their writing, and obviously I mentored all the writers in the Delphine. Some stayed, some trickled off and had their own companies. Some end up getting book deals. I sold some of Delphine Publication books to Kensington for bigger distribution. And from there, I kind of just kept creating. And now I'm on my own personal 17th book with my romance, and yeah, still going, still publishing.
Good, good. Now, you talked about the fact that with your publishing, you had a couple of contractors, right? So,
Yeah,
you mentioned specifically an editor. So let's talk a little bit about how important editing is in that process.
editing is extremely important. And I mean, extremely important is how people are going to really, you can have a good story, but people can get lost in the errors, or people can get lost in the confusion, especially if your story isn't flowing. If your characters aren't fully developed, people are going to lack connection with your stories. And they're not going to care. They're going to put it down. So editing is extremely important, and there's different stages of editing. I always tell writers, try to clean it up as much as possible while you have it, because for the most part, when you get that final product, whatever errors are in there, the editor didn't put it in. They were supposed to take them out, but whatever errors are left in there, you put it in there. And so this is your baby. And I always tell writers, your publisher is like your doctor. And then you have your editors that may be like the nurse in there, someone's coming there taking you doing your blood work, like the graphic design. Like, I'm using all these little metaphors.
Yeah.
And the doctor basically helps you, get the baby there, make sure the baby is healthy, and then what do? They give you the baby. This is your baby. Take care of your baby. And if you're gonna breastfeed, they show you how to do all that, and they leave the room because they ain't their baby. So I tell writers, I'm not the mama. This is not my baby. This is your baby. So once I get it to the point of where it's polished enough, and you went through the levels of editing, it's really, really up to you to take one more good look at that book. Print it out, read it, get some better readers. Better readers are like, friends, family, avid book lovers, and get them to read it and go through it as much as possible. It's the most streetiest and frustrating and long-winded process over and over and over. I think with Sugar Hill, I rewrote it 3 times.
Okay.
And I went through the editing, 2 different editors, and then after that, I read it and I'm like, God diggity dang it, I saw something more. So it's like it's always something. And it's interesting that the guy in the commercial in the beginning, he was like, if someone reads it and they say, oh, this is bad, you can just go back in and edit it and stuff like that. So with Kindle, you can always, upload a new file. So I even did that after the fact. But editing is really, really important, you guys. You have your proofing, your copy editing, and your developmental editing. Developmental editing is extremely important because it helps. It's the overall development of your stories, developing of your characters, the development of your settings, your plot, the beginning, middle, and the end, making sure it all makes sense. And then just because, last but not least with editing, just because someone says they're an editor does not mean they're the best editor for you. They have to
Mhm.
understand your voice. They have to understand the world that you're creating. They have to be able to relate to the characters just a little bit. Because if they do not understand your terminology, if they do not technically understand your world, I don't think they're going to really help make the manuscript better. They can catch commas and periods and things like that. If you use the wrong then and then, they can catch those. But the overall development of it, make sure you match yourself with an editor who is familiar with that world, or who can, connect themselves with the world that you're trying to create, so that it can have the best overall story development, at the end of the day.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Talk to me about how you find your editors and then how you interview them to determine if they're going to be an effective editor for you.
Well, I had to learn it the hard way that every editor is not your editor. So I had to learn it the hard way. And then once I began to really kind of get it, I go through a process now of just talking about their history, and I also send them samples of some of our books and to give us some feedback. Because now I have a process now where I work with the editors chapter by chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of consult me on the content as we're developing it. And I do this with my media company that I have now because I get these questions often. And so I do more
Mm-hmm.
than just edit. We actually kind of consult and we mentor on these manuscripts and we challenge the writer in these spaces. So now it's more so I look at their history, and then I challenge them with, the first couple chapters. And
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of go from there. I ask them also too, like, what are some stories that you liked, some stories that you didn't like, what are some challenges that you think you have made? I kind of interview them like a job. Like you have to really kind of get to know them. And then it doesn't hurt to get some references. Just because they say they're good, don't just take the word for it. Ask somebody. Come on, folks. Ask someone. Like it doesn't take, and then if they're resistant to that, then no, that's not the one. Just keep moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good. So, what advice would you give to new and aspiring indie authors who are considering Kindle direct publishing?
Well, nowadays we're in 2020, so we're in a whole new decade. Ugh, this decade has been trash, but we have 9 more years to go, guys. So we have 9 more years to make it better. But in the early
Got to go up from
2010s,
here.
yeah, it has to. Like if it doesn't, we looking at the Handmaid's Tale. We looking at that was extreme.
Yeah, I was going to say,
We're
don't
looking
put
at
that out
like
there in the world. Come on.
right, oh, my bad, y'all. Never take it back. But come on, y'all. We like the world cannot get any worse than this. I'm praying, for the lights at the end of the tunnel. But with this whole new decade, there's so many different people that are creating now, which is this is the
Mhm.
best time to create, especially due to COVID and everyone's been kind of been forced to sit down. Um, so my advice would be, well, I'm sorry, what was the question? Because I was thinking about something else, Sam.
That's okay. We kind of got sidetracked there, didn't we?
Yeah, with the whole little handmaid's tale.
So, what advice would you give to new and aspiring indie
Oh
authors
yeah,
who are considering KDP?
that's right. Um, do your research about and look at the books that are sitting on like the top 20, top 50 in your genre. There are so many different subgenres and bestsellers lists that are on Amazon, which is pretty great because you have the opportunity to get seen. So can't even tell you, we just did a masterclass like this for Black Writers Weekend where we were talking about the categories and algorithms and all that jazz. So it is a lot of opportunities for you to kind of gain some recognition. But again, there are a lot of books that come out every year. So understanding the genres that you want to go into, looking at other people, they're in the same space as you, and then posting a lot, being engaged a lot, looking up different bloggers. Hosting as many different live chats as possible, looking up different book clubs so that you can be their book of the month, their reading list, utilizing platforms such as Goodreads. And Goodreads also was a part of Black Writers Weekend this year too. So finding different platforms like that where you can connect with other readers.
Mhm.
And also maybe utilize these different these media giants or platforms to be, seen and gain some type of visibility. But that's what I would suggest. I would just tell them to do a lot of research with books that are already kind of aligned with their book, and
Mhm.
then make a marketing plan. Like actually make like a really really strategic plan. I'm going to post here, I'm going to invest on this website, I'm going to talk to this blogger, I'm going to seek out this reviewer, I'm going to seek out this book club, I'm going to post this amount of many times, I'm going to do an ad and it needs to be something really really detailed, really strategic. And then of course always engaging constantly. That would be my advice, because other than that, you kind of have to just let it do its due diligence and its work, get people to read it, enjoy it, leave a review, and then go from there. The more people you can get talking about the book, the more likely you
Mhm.
can get more people to download it. So don't technically do all of the posting, get other people to kind of talk about it too. You can do that through like reading groups and book reviewers. Yeah.
Mhm. Good. So, along with that, so which of those marketing tactics, because you talked about a lot of them,
I
which
know.
one do you think? Well, it's a big, I mean, it's a whole journey. But which
It
one has been most
is.
successful? Okay, go ahead.
It is a whole journey, and this is why I keep expressing that we're an artist, because it's a journey, and you're forever evolving, you're forever polishing your artistry. So understanding and then studying the business, you really cannot step into, well you can, because plenty of people do, but you shouldn't step into an industry without proper research.
Mhm.
And then Will Smith is someone I follow on Instagram, and he says it often about failing forward. because failure is a part of success. Like, you're going to have these moments where it's not so great. So you're going to continue to fail, but fail forward, meaning learn from those mistakes. Take those things that didn't work and do another route until you discover the niche that's going to work for you. It's simple. Like, it's a forever, revolving door here. And until you even get to that level, you just have to keep, finding different ways and different avenues and different websites that's going to work, connecting with your tribe and other writers, that's going to help, mentor you and root you on and hype you up. But it's forever going. And then remember, when you get here, then you have other measures and tactics that you need to attack at this level. It's constant. Like, success is a forever journey, especially if you want to be a full-time writer and you don't technically, want to work a 9 to 5 or spend your time investing in somebody else's, journey. This is going to be, this is the process. And so it's a forever thing. And if you're blessed enough to get to the point where you're doing this full-time, such as I'm constantly looking up different ways to be creative. I'm constantly putting out content, or I'm constantly curating events to keep, myself relevant, to keep myself engaged. So it's all about just consistently doing things, failing forward, and doing your research. You can't do this, scared, and you can't do this, by putting $20 here, $50 there. I'm going to spend a couple hours a week. Okay. Like, you can do those things, and you have those far in between people where it just works, but that's really far in between. Some people are kind of just blessed more than others. But it is a consistency, and failing forward that is really, 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 really going to help writers in this space.
Gotcha. Now, the other thing that you do often is you amplify other voices. So you help others share their stories. Tell me a little bit about why that's important to you.
I think a part of my makeup is active service. And I started my book club, which is AAMBC, which stands for African Americans on the Move book club, back in 2008, before my publishing company. And I started to start conversations around books and around Black books and Black writers specifically, because I had written my book, The Ultimate No-No, at that point. It was just sitting on my bookshelf. And I did not know that there were hundreds of writers that actually were, existed out there. I always just thought there were the, 30 to 50 or so, the same writers, because media always selected the same writers who, exposed. That's not fair. And I didn't think that was fair, because I was an aspiring writer. So how am I supposed to get my foot in the door if you're always just letting the same old people, inside? So I was like, cool. They won't let us in. I'm going to create our own door. And that's basically what I did. So I created this online book club back in 2008 that allowed writers who today are like a Kimberly Jones, who recently went viral, or Lisa Johnson, who ended up, she started off independent. She went on to have this book deal. It's dozens and dozens of stories like that. I can talk about writers that was in AAMBC as independent. They became part of our book club. We had branches across different cities, everywhere. And then I was like, well, let me take a little bit further and stop just doing it online. Let me do an actual national meeting. And so I did the AAMBC national meeting, which eventually became the AAMBC Awards, which is now Black Writers Weekend. And my whole vision behind that was, okay, they weren't talking about us online. They're not putting us on the magazine covers. They're not allowing us to walk the red carpet either. And I thought that was whack, because without writers, you won't have music, you won't have movies, you won't have TV shows. So, excuse me, we should be on the red carpet too. So I was like, all right, bet. They won't put us on the red carpet. I'm going to make us a red carpet. So AAMBC, I'm always doing like, I'm going to do it. So AAMBC, I created an award show back in 2015. I did it for the first time here in, was it 2015? 2014, one of them, in Atlanta. And I produced this, I put on a production in a theater hall, similar to what you guys see on TV with like the Billboard Awards or the NAACP Image Awards or the Grammys. I implemented the same concept, the same production, And then I said, well, for books to really get the recognition, I know I need to kind of cross over a little bit because there are writers
Hmm.
in film and television. So I merged the two.
Right.
And it ended up becoming, and still is, one of the most attended award shows for Black writers in the country. I want to say last year, the year before last, we had over 400 people just for the award show alone. We honored the great Nicky Giovanni, and we
Hmm.
also honored Terry Woods, Wahida Clark, and these are legendary writers in fiction, and they're of African American descent. Um, and so we have live performances, we have a live band, and it's this huge stage with this huge projector, like you will see at the Grammys, and it shows like when they're doing like the nominees. And the nominee
Uh-huh.
for such and such is, and I'm telling you, to do this show is extremely, extremely hard. But the relationships that have been merged and built from this is a reason why I do it. I've gotten the interest of networks such as OWN, BT, Bravo, WeTV, Fox, TV One. I'm probably missing some networks, but then they got interested in what we were doing
Hmm.
because who celebrates books this way? Like it's just books, and I'm like, whatever. We're the real rock stars. Like, what are you talking about? You wouldn't exist without us. So amplifying us in a fun way and
Uh-huh.
also in a way to where Hollywood or mainstream media would not allow us in. That was my core, the core focus of developing AAMBC and then ultimately developing Black Writers Weekend is creating those platforms, creating those events, creating that in-person engagement, and then having people in the room that's going to help writers elevate. So there's agents in the
Hmm.
room, there's producers, there's studio heads, there's publicists in the room. And then there's, people that's on the TV shows, the actors and, the directors, they're in the room. And so they get to actually just, lock arms with these people and they wouldn't probably necessarily be able to do it because book events naturally don't go that route. So I wanted to kind of just do a
Right.
little bit different and kind of, that's how I amplify Black writers is through opportunities through that space.
Good. Good. So let's talk. We talked a little bit at the beginning about the Black Writers Weekend. So I wanted to kind of go back to that to talk about what happens during Black Writers Weekend. Um, Kind of what would people expect if they joined?
Oh wow! So Black Writers Weekend is pretty dope. I'm kind of jealous of attendees, and this is really really weird to say because there's no other event like it, and I like engaging with readers and artists too, and I would like to sometimes be like the attendee, have my little swag bag on with all my goodies that the festival gave me, and I'm looking at my schedule, and I'm able to pick what conversations I want to go to, and then there's parties with alcohol, and then there's events with food, and I'm like, it's so much going on. So Black
Hmm.
Writers Weekend, so I try to just, get past that. And then, when I'm walking through these different events, I sometimes I can't technically just, say hi and, and
Hmm.
enjoy the spaces because everyone wants to talk or everyone wants,
Hmm.
to grab a photo or everyone wants to tell me how they're enjoying it. So it gets a little bit overwhelming for me, but other people really, really enjoy it. Because there are dozens upon dozens of artist conversations, and notice I said artists,
Hmm.
because the conversations aren't technically about the books itself. You get to get the book because we have the booksellers in the room when the writer is done speaking and things
Hmm.
like that. But the conversation is about the writer, their stories, their creativity, how they got there, some of their challenges. And then we talk about the subject matter of the books itself. But you probably have about 20 or so of those going on throughout the weekend. You have these panel events, and we have these different stages that we do. So, say for instance, when Amazon KDP comes back for 2021, putting it out into the atmosphere, you guys will
You're
have
just
your own.
starting that now.
You guys will have your own stage, and so with your stage throughout the day, you have your own programming, and these people that's on your stage are attached to your brand. So, say for instance, you have Amazon KDP, or you may have like Spotify because Spotify, we have like a podcast program and all of that because that's
Hmm.
another form of storytelling. People are able to pick
Hmm.
and choose these different stages. There are sometimes in studio halls, lounges, book clubs, coffee shops, a library with a huge theater, an art gallery. Like these are the different venues that we have all these different events at. and they're in walking proximity of each other. So you're able to then, and we call this a lit crawl. So I don't know if you've ever been to
Mm-hmm.
a bar crawl. And the bar crawls
Mm-hmm.
where bars have all these bar specials and things. You just go, you bar hop and you just enjoy all these different
Right.
bars. So we do the same thing with lit crawl. So you're crawling to all of these different places and it's all literary based. And there's different themes and things going on all these different crawl stops, along with
Mm-hmm.
going to these different venues. There are books hidden, they may be sitting on a sidewalk, they may be hidden in the bush, they may be hidden behind a little rock or something, but you're able to find all these goodies along the way. And these books are donated by authors and other publishers, things like that. So it's a really engaging, fun time. You get to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get to dance because we have our big party, which is the Urban Book Bash, and it's usually a
Mm-hmm.
theme. So you dress up. It's almost like a little cartoon, not cartoon, but costume party. And there's a different
Oh,
theme. Like
wow.
last year, like a '90s theme. This year we'll probably do like a theme around your character, like you come dressed up like your character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's always a thing. So it's very, very engaging. And then the award show is always the finale event. It's the big red carpet event.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our access to Hollywood moment. And yeah, so it's very, engaging. It's 3 to 4 days sometimes. So some years it
Mm-hmm.
varies. Once the year before it was 4. So yeah, it's a lot going on. But for the most part, readers leave with a whole bunch of books. And then that's for the readers part. Authors, we have moments where we're teaching them, we're molding them. We have our conference
Mm-hmm.
called Creative Con. That's also a part of Black Writers Weekend. So they get to go to all these different workshops, these creative clinics, and they get to learn all these resources. They get to pitch their books to agents and publishers. So it's a lot. It is a lot.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for organizing all of that. I know
It's a
it's
lot, but it's a
it's
good thing. So writers get to have fun, readers get to have fun.
all right. So we've got some questions that are coming in from our attendees. Um, and a couple of them are about your writing process. So do you outline your book when you're writing, or do you just kind of, I think they call it a pantser or a plotter. Do you plot everything out and outline everything, or do you just fly by the seat of your pants when you're writing?
I have an outline. I have an idea. Back then, I used to freehand write. So I didn't
Hmm.
have an outline of characters. I didn't have like these points that I want to hit in the book. I didn't have all of that. I would just freehand write, and it would take me maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks to write it because as I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm meeting these readers at the same time. I have no idea what's going on, so I'm entertained. So when I'm entertained, I want to
Hmm.
know what's going on. But as I
Right.
began to add on responsibilities like publishing, curating different events, traveling, because then I had to do book events and things like that, I became a little bit more structured
Hmm.
because I'm not able to just sit down sometimes fully the whole 3 to 6 weeks to just write. So now it's a little bit more, structured. So I have my character list, maybe have like a little bio next to the person. Then I have not technically a story Bible or a storyboard, but I have like maybe like some notes and I know what's going to happen in the beginning, the middle. I know where I want it to kind
Hmm.
of end, and I'll kind of fill it in between. And sometimes as I'm writing, I may jot some notes and be like, ooh, let me make sure this happened, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm a little bit more disciplined, I guess, in my writing now. I miss the good old
Hmm.
days. I'm hoping I get back to the days where I could just write and I could just escape into a story. But when you
Hmm.
really add on, the business part of it, and you're really building this art, the brand, you have to kind of transition and kind of adjust with the new
Hmm.
space that you're in. And so I had to find another way to be disciplined with my storytelling as I kind of got a little bit more busy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you know of any resources? So for your authors that you're mentoring, do you offer them any resources for how to outline their book or how to do that plotting before they start writing?
Well, I do not, but I've shared different links and websites and things that they can use. There is a website
Mhm.
where I know if you just Google storyboard or story Bible,
Mhm.
there are different free templates and websites that you can utilize, even paid sources that you can utilize that can help you outline your book. But I personally do not force them to use a certain type of software. We kind of talk it out and we outline and break it down together. And then I also have a team of editors, and we do what's called literary consulting. And she created a program to where she'll have this exercise, and this is something that she created. And she'll have this exercise to help you get to know your book and your characters before she begins to dive into your book with you. And then she'll work with you chapter by chapter on developing the story. So we actually do that part. It's kind of like more of a hands-on experience.
Gotcha. Now, I know, and we've kind of talked that publishing frequently helps build that brand. How frequently should a self-publisher publish?
Oh, well, that depends on the artist. That's like telling a musician how many albums should they come out in a year. I don't know. I guess it depends on the stories that you have to tell. Don't force it. Once you really build a readership, your readers have these expectations, and I'm the worst at this because I'll freestyle a book and I'll just throw it out randomly, and I'm not really consistent with my deliveries. But once you really become, consistent with your storytelling, set a plan and goal for yourself and stick to it. If you want to put out a book every quarter, great. If you want to put out 2 books a year, great. If you want to put out 1 book a year, great. But stick to that. That way your readers have these expectations, and in every book it gets easier and easier and easier because they know that such and such is coming out with a book this month, or such and such book is coming out with a book this fall. So it becomes like build that repetition, and your readers are going to do the rest of the work. But you can't be all over the place. So to determine, what you want to do and go from there.
Okay. So if you had to pick one marketing technique that you think worked best for you, or that you're like, this is your must-have marketing technique, what is it?
A book event. Definitely a book event. And how I normally do my book releases, I have a book blogger. There is a book community on Instagram now. And also on Twitter. Like Twitter has its own community, Instagram has its own community, and then Facebook has their groups and things like that. So I would technically find an interviewer, like a book reviewer, someone that has their own platform or their own audience, and they would interview me in front of an audience. That audience would be anywhere from 20 to 50 readers, and then I would encourage them to talk about the book. I put them to work. I make them tweet the book, Instagram the book, and I ask them all to leave a book review. And I may add an additional incentive to that. Hey, if you guys leave a book review, then it's going to enter you into this contest. Like sometimes you have to offer them something extra so they have that incentive to want to leave a review. But with my event, obviously there's only like 50 people in the room and there's thousands of people online. But it starts with that group of people to keep those conversations going. So I just put people in the room. I put them to work, so to say. I entertain them, make them laugh, et cetera, et cetera. And then I encourage them to share online and tell a friend. And it kind of starts from there. That's normally how I start. I also reach out to various bloggers. I have a blogger list that I actually attack for every book. And how I discovered this blogger list is from research. Obviously, looking up different hashtags, creating notes, like, just doing your part. Like, it's going to take a little bit of research, a little bit of time to determine those outlets that you want to use. And then having a really good solid pitch when it comes, to reaching out to these bloggers. Why do they want to blog about your book, and who are you is what they're going to be asking and wondering. So again, pulling out what's unique about you, being able to explain yourself in one sentence for the most part, which is kind of like your elevator pitch. Or if you're a screenwriter, it's called like a log line if you're a screenwriter. So basically like your log line for yourself. So yeah, so I do those things, and I reach out to different book reviewers. I offer them a free book. So this is me investing my time. This is me also investing in myself by offering up books for free to reviewers. And then also the time it takes to to be the personality of an event itself, to get the people into the room, first of all. So this is why I collaborate with other like-minded people. So I would encourage people to do that, curate some type of conversation. Now, even if it's virtual, that should be even easier. So find some book clubs that you can meet up with online, or create your own event. I wouldn't technically call the event behind your book or name it behind you, because if you're just now building an audience, people are going to be like, well, who and what? So let's find something, another catchphrase, or name it something that people love. So I've done coffee and wine. I've done wine about books. What else I've done? I've done a fly girl chat. I've done that because I'm finding these relatable words that people are like, ooh, I'm a fly girl. Ooh, I like wine. Ooh, I like coffee. So it's getting people to want to click and be like, and be a little bit more engaged. Like, well, what's this about? So just finding something a little bit that you like as well, that other people want to like and make them want to click on it. So you may like anime. I don't know. Then the title of it could be something about, y'all don't know nothing about anime, but that's just an example. So yeah, just finding something about you, pulling it out there, and then, making people kind of click on that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So as a business owner and a writer, what does your day look like? How do you structure your day so that you can make sure you have time to write?
Well, I don't have time to write. So I have put this up here. I have a Bible. I have everything in my Bible. So I utilize this. I open this up every day. And I have a to-do list. I may have like a little freehand paper, and I'll write down my to-do list every day, and I'll get through that. Sundays and weekends is normally dedicated just for me. So you have to have, if you're like me, you manage different brands or different projects, different companies, different artists, things like that. Your days need to be dedicated to certain things. And then also certain times during the day need to be dedicated to certain things. So I start my morning with checking emails and social media and things like that. Then I'll get on and I'll see what tasks my team and stuff needs. I'll begin to make my daily to-do list. I'll go into my overall journal and I'll see what my goals are, because I set my goals for the month. And then I break down what steps I need to take to hit that goal for the month. And I just do, I do the work. Sundays is normally dedicated for me. It's what Saturdays I normally do like a work day with my team, and we do like this virtual workspace. And then from there, I'll dedicate that time for me. But then before COVID, I actually would do writing trips. So I would, it could be a cabin in the woods. It could be, I'm going to like Chicago downtown. Because sometimes I like to be bougie, when I'm creating. Or I like to have like a different environment when I'm creating,
Right.
because it's getting me out of my comfort zone. It's kind of shaking me up a little bit. And then from there, I'll put on my music, my headphones, and I'll write, and I'm writing. So it's different ways I have to kind of, I have to manipulate my time just a little bit as you build up those responsibilities. But if you do not have those responsibilities, as much responsibility, I know everybody has families, you have children, we may have jobs and things we have to go to. But just like we dedicate time for all these things that we feel is a must, your writing is a must as well. So even if it's an hour or two a week, set aside that time and be disciplined with that. The goal is you're going to finish eventually. You may not finish as quickly, but you're going to finish eventually if you just stick with the time. So I'm going to always keep throwing out the word discipline and consistency, those two things.
Good, good. All right, I think we have time for one more question. And the question is around KDP free book promotions to promote your book. Do you use those? But I know that one of the things, if you're using the free promotions, then you're probably enrolled in KDP Select. So let's start with that. One, do you have your books enrolled in KDP Select? And if so, do you use the free promotions?
Yes, yes to both. And this is a trick that I've done to the freebies. The series is a really, really good thing. So if it's a series, book one is going to be free because it's going to make people want to, read the rest. I've also done this
Mhm.
thing where I have these lost chapters or these extra chapters, and I'll offer that up for free. And that will get people, interested in the whole series. Sometimes within
Mhm.
these books, I'll have like an activity book or interviews, some backstories behind the characters. Like people want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper. And I treat my novels sometimes like I guess like anime, where you can find a little bit more about the characters and they have their bios and all that. Just I kind of do a little bit of that. But utilizing the free promo option, you have to understand what your
Mhm.
goal is with doing that, because just offering it for free sometimes it's not going to be as effective as you want it if you don't have a clear goal. So within your book, you should have some type of call to action in there. Um, you should be mentioning that there are other pieces to the puzzle, more series to the book. You should be having your contact information in there as well. So
Mhm.
there's ways to make sure that your free book is, engraved with some type of call to action where people are going to want more and more and more. So if you're utilizing that,
Mhm.
make sure that there's, you identify your purpose of it and make sure that that purpose is very clear in the freebie.
Gotcha. Good advice. Very good advice. Well, at that, we're at time, and I wanted
Oh
to
man,
thank you so much. I know. Had a
this,
blast.
this was fun.
Good. Good. So I have a quick question. We've talked a lot about the Black Writers Weekend, and I know we missed it. It was last week. But because it's virtual, was it recorded and is that available?
Yes, the conversations are on demand for the free conversations. We're not, if you want to register, you can. Maybe then you can get the playbacks for the masterclass and things like that. So yeah, you can.
Mhm.
And you go to blackwritersweekend.com. Again, that's blackwritersweekend.com. I know I had this list so my tongue be messing with my words. But blackwritersweekend.com. Also on Instagram is Black Writers Weekend. Facebook, Black Writers Weekend. And then we have our fall conference that's coming up, which is Creative Con. And it's not going to be as big
Mhm.
as I wanted because I just came off of doing Black Writers Weekend. But this November, or is it October? If it, whatever. But it's coming up, y'all. So go to thecreativecon.com. Again, thecreativecon.com so that you can attend our writers conference. And that's where you're going to get writers clinics, more master classes, and things like that. You discuss the art of storytelling. We're going to tap into screenwriting, all that jazz. And then if you want to, possibly an award-winning author, the AAMBC Awards nominations will start December and January. So go to the AAMBCawards.com and you'll be able to, discover all the information for 2021's voting and nominations. And then next summer, we'll be back in Atlanta for Black Writers Weekend 2021.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for supporting Black Writers Weekend this year. And I look
Absolutely.
forward to many,
Absolutely.
many, 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 many more opportunities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And on
Thanks,
that
guys.
note, happy publishing, y'all.